start talking on that. So last year, and there's going to be a typo right next to this, right after this slide. But yeah, last year, Sir named a list of 30 notable hockey books in history. So, and well, one French book was on the list, and I thought it wasn't enough. So I suggested to the president, maybe we could do a list, maybe a shorter list of books that were written in French. And so we created a small committee for that. And this is what I'm going to be presenting as soon as John gives me the okay. Should I be wearing this?
You can if you want.
Oh, that works well.
All right.
Here there's oh, okay, I was doing it wrong. Okay, so when I say go, you press. All right, I'll go. So the presentation is going to be in English, don't worry, with just the names of the books are going to be in French. So yeah, so apparently it was not 1990. I thought it was 1991, but then last year we said 30 and 30. So I said, well, 2022 minus 30, so I changed it, my bad. So that was the first meeting, the official picture from the first meeting, and Brian McFarland came up with the idea for the name, Society for International Hockey Research. And I mentioned this because we came across Mr. McFarland yesterday, and I think he's 91 years old now, and he told us the story of how he came up with the name. And I have a notepad there that I'm going to want to follow. Thank you. So, all right, next. Yeah. So in 2008, we had a Sir AGM in Quebec City, and next. So we adopted an official French version of the name, Société Internationale de Recherche sur le Hockey. So go. So I proposed it, and Paul Kitchen very enthusiastically seconded. Actually, he contacted me several days before the meeting, and he said, "I want to second this." So it's a little tribute for Mr. Kitchen. So it was adopted unanimously. Now last year we had this go, and we designated 30 notable hockey books, which are now on the website. So this is this is not quite ready for this, so I'm going to be trying to rush to get this on the website as soon as possible. So now this part in French. I think we're in Mississauga. I thought we were in Etobicoke, but I think it's close. And so I've tried to come up with the best term. Is that it's not the best hockey book. It's not. I didn't want to say essential or So I came up with remarkable, and nobody said anything. So we're going with that. So all right, go. Take it out. So yeah, I don't want you to see them too much. So here's the list, starting the list. So they're not in order. They're in semi-random order. They're not alphabetical, but there's two books that stood out. So actually, I needed to mention the process and the committee. So on the committee, there were 3 media professionals. Well, there were 15 people, but only 9 people actually voted. Some people just joined because they were curious and knew a little bit of French and said, well, maybe these are books I could read. So 3 media professionals, 3 historians, 2 former SUR presidents, including James Milks, and 1 collector librarian. The method is we nominated books, and then from the entire list that everyone suggested, we made our own list of 15 or more names, but the first 15 positions gave you points. The higher in the list, the more points you had. And then we'd take the book that came up with the most points, and that was the first book on the list. Then we'd take that name from the list, and we'd vote again. And so on. So this stretched out over a period of about 2.5 weeks, which was kind of fun, having a new book every day being listed. we had 4 of the books that were nominated were actually written by members of the committee. So we made a rule that you were not allowed to vote for your own book. However, because it was a small committee, to have a fair chance, when those books got votes from other people, those votes were weighted in such a way that it made it fair for everyone. So in the end, 2 out of the 4 actually ended up on the list. So, all right, so the first book, you'll recognize it because it was on the English list. This is Le Chandail de Hockey, which was nominated last year as the hockey sweater. This is the illustrated version, which came out in 1984 and had been written a few years earlier. And so it was re-released recently in 2019, sorry, with a new publisher. And well, I don't want to brag, but please press. I'm pal with the author. We signed books together at the Montreal Book Fair, and I don't want to brag, but I'm signing 4 books. He's only signing 1, so he had a big hit. But after that,
Were you signing his books?
no. But actually, one of the books that I was signing was a Maurice Richard book, and so this became sort of a selling point. My book talks about Roch Carrier's book.
Where do your books fit on the list?
It's not. So, next one. So, so I wanted to mention, 2 books, really came out with, I don't want to say unanimous or nearly unanimous, but like a very strong preference from the voters. So this book and the previous one, the Chandail de Hockey, they had either a first or second position vote from at least half of the voters. So this one was written by Linda Bali, published in 2013. It's an incredible book. It's got so much. The iconography is incredible. There's pictures from catalogs, from postcards from early in the 20th century. It's really the work of a lifetime. I'm just honored to have known her. She actually mentions my name in the book, and I don't deserve it, to be honest. But it's an incredible book. It's still available, and I can only encourage you to acquire it.
Would she be related to anything?
I don't know. And something I want to mention, kind of funny because, so those 2 books like that really came out, that really stood out in our voting. So this, as I said, this is the work of a lifetime. She must have spent decades preparing this book. Whereas the other one, the Chandail de Hockey, was written, as the story goes, in like maybe 2 or 3 days. So, sometimes it just takes a stroke of genius, and sometimes it takes like a lot of hard work. All right, next. Okay, don't. Well, you're not supposed to show them all at once. That's why. So so after that, and what I said is sort of random order. This is the first history book about the Montreal Canadiens. It came out in 1949, and well, the author, or well, whoever made the cover and the back cover really liked double quotes, because you got the Canadiens in double quotes, you got bonne chance in double quotes, and so it's interesting. It's not all that well rehearsed. This says that Georges Vizina had 22 children. It's not true. So the next book he had 3, one of which died after 3 months, I think, and his wife had several miscarriages. So it's kind of not funny. So the next time so this is the next version that came out in '56, but went up to the 1955 season. So it came out in January, I think. So it's just an update. He didn't go back and change anything in the first part, except the one sentence about Vizina, where he took out the 22 children and he just wrote several children, which is just as untrue. But so, all right. Next. So this one, Les Stachny, Cugini. So that the stroke of genius of Gilles Léger is the story of the caper, of how the Stachny fled. Not Czechoslovakia, but they were in a tournament in Austria, I think. And then, is it a year or 2 years later that Marianne Stachny also escaped him from Czechoslovakia. So, where's the book? So this is the book, and I was lucky enough to get it signed by the author and two of the brothers, Marianne and Antoine, at the Quebec City Book Fair, and like Marianne has not forgiven his brothers for fleeing without him. So at the table where they were signing, there were the two brothers, and the author was in between them. A bit sad.
You mentioned something about Léger. I always thought of it about he was the genius behind it.
Yeah.
I'm saying someone else now. What
No, yeah, Gilles Léger is really the person who organized the escape of the Stachnys from the World Championship, and Marcel Aubu, he was aware, he was involved, but it was really the work of Gilles Léger. So, I don't know if you want more information, Benoit can tell you more. So, all right, next one. So, La Coupe à Québec. So, well, this is one of the books that whose author was on the committee. Somewhere. Oh, here it is. And so here, Marc Durand presented this book in Penetanguishene, and it's also an incredible work. Also, the visual documents are amazing, and he did this book in a very unusual way. He had a website, and he basically asked people to contribute, and he would find things on his own. He would put everything on this website, which is very unusual. Usually when you have a project, you hide everything. You don't want anyone to know that you're even working on that sometimes. And so him, on the contrary, everything was on the open. But at the end, it produced a fantastic book here. Right. Coalisé contre le Forum, en histoire du hockey, tome 1. So this is from a Montreal journalist, Philippe Quentin. So this came out in 2012. What do I say about this? The focus of Mr. Quentin, he was a columnist at La Presse. Now he does mostly radio and a little bit of TV. He's particularly interested in the political aspect of sports, but political in the wide sense. For example, the beer war in Quebec, when sort of Molson got pressured into allowing the Nordiques to come, even though they were sponsored by O'Keefe. So all these things, and how Jean Béliveau was able to stay in Quebec City and make more money than if he played with the Montreal Canadiens, because Premier Maurice Duplessis pressured the team to give him a high salary. So and as such, it's a very interesting book. Next. Oh, and I don't want to brag, but can we go back? Yeah, he was very honored to have his picture taken with me. Non-bragging. All right, so well, this is a bit unusual. It's not exactly a book. And I was tempted to actually bring, so I printed just the cover. This is a doctorate thesis of Michel Vigneault, who was a longtime SIR member. So this is the annex. This is like 370 pages or so. This is like 150 pages. So yeah, I was tempted to bring a stack of white paper and like pretend it was the whole thing, but I decided against it. So this was published in 2001. Incredible work. If you want to know all of the early arenas on the island of Montreal, well, this is the place to find it. This is available, and so I'm going to put that when it's on the website. You can go to it. This is entirely available for free on the website of Université Laval. Right. Next. Next. Okay. So, Shaibou, Histoire du hockey russe. So, this was presented by the author at the 20th anniversary meeting. It's also a thesis. And so this came out in two parts. So the first part, this is the history of Russian hockey. So here is from the origin to the Summit Series. And then the following year, the second part, from Tikhonov to the KHL. So this is, well, so the author spent 6 months, I think, in Russia researching this. And he learned Russian, which I'm told actually it's one of the easiest languages to learn. I was told that by actually another author whose book is on the list. So incredible amount of research. I don't know that there's an English equivalent, like so much detail. Actually, he would have liked his book to be translated, but it hasn't happened. So Georges Vézina, so this is the first biography. We only have 2 biographies in our list. So Georges Vézina is well-known hockey player who died a few months after playing his last game. And so the author is a journalist, also Michael Lancet. He was working for a TV network, a sports TV network. He was let go at the beginning of the pandemic. He didn't immediately find employment, so he went out. He said, well, I've been working on a book for Georges Vézina. I'm going to finish it. So it came out very successful. Incredible research. I mean, he had to go back over 100 years to figure out what was the life of the people there in Lac Saint-Jean at the time. And he's also published 2 more books, and there's another one coming. And now he works at Le Soleil newspaper in Quebec City. He's got the right count. He's also found he made the same discovery that I had made, which is that Georges Vézina always signed his name. Can you go back, please? Yeah, Georges Vézina always signed his name without the letter S at the end of George here. So when I saw the signature, I was wondering, well, is his real name spelled without an S? But actually, on the birth certificate, it does have an S. So it's a little strange thing.
Is that the same series that you published with Jean-Pierre?
No, I wrote children's books in French. This is like a big book. So yeah, next one, Histoire du hockey au Québec. Here, so this was published in 1990 by Donald Gay. So Donald Gay wrote over 15 books. He's the first Quebec sports historian. So he's written a lot about the theory of sport. He's offered his definition of what sport is. So yeah, he passed away, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and he leaves a big legacy on the history of sports. Next. So Les Yeux de Maurice Richard. So this is a little bit unusual. So let me get it. So this is a book about Maurice Richard, but it's not about his goals and his statistics, or not so much even about the riot. It's about the cultural legacy that he's left to Quebec. And so this was very popular. So there was a second edition a couple of years later, but it was the same. Hold on. It was the same thing, but he said they fixed some typos, and the color pictures became black and white. So if you can get the first version, you're better off. Then there was a pocket version that came out in 2012, which is identical to this one, well, except the lettering on the cover. And so this is the only other book besides the hockey sweater on our list that was translated to English. So I don't know if it's still available. This one is still available. Actually, I bought the pocket version to have it to show here. So it is still available, but apparently there aren't that many copies left anymore. And you have to look for it because it's not in the sports section, it's not in the biography section. But eventually, like two employees at the bookstore, they finally got their hands on it. All right, next one. Histoire du hockey sur glace en France. This is one I really was rooting for very hard. There's not that many ice hockey historians in France, and this guy is incredibly dedicated. I met him once outside of Paris. He was counting shots on goal for a third division team that he was following because their arena had burned down, so they were playing their home games here and there. One of the arenas didn't even have boards behind the glass boards behind the goals, so they sort of learned not to shoot too high because there were too many stoppages. And so he did like the whole history of ice hockey in France with some pictures. It's a fantastic book.
One question about that. Since this is my first time hearing about this, I know that one of the American players I was following actually went over to play hockey in France in the 20s. Does this book kind of go back that far, or is it just more recent?
Oh no, it goes to the beginning of hockey in France, and actually he has an amazing website. He has the website about international hockey, I think that most complete that I know of every result of every international tournament at any level. I don't think there's an English equivalent of that. And one of the things is the very beginnings of hockey in France is on the website. So yes, it covers all of that. Next. So, Nordique de Québec. So yeah, we had to pick a book about the Nordiques. So this is the other book whose author was on the committee, so he was not allowed to vote for his own book, but still he came out, and this was published in 2001. He very youthful looking Benoît Cléroux, and I don't want to brag, but I know him.
You sign his books too?
Sorry?
Do you sign his books too?
Do I sign his books? No, I don't have a picture with him. I wanted to take a picture yesterday. I asked him yesterday to take a picture, but.
I was eating.
Okay, Jacques Demers. This is the other biography, which came out in 2005, and this is sort of a historical biography. It made history because that's when people discovered or learned that he was pretty much illiterate. He could barely sign his name for autographs. That's how serious it was for him. And he made great progress after that. Of course, now his health situation is not very good after a stroke, 1 or 2 strokes even. So the author had the clever idea of having 26 chapters, one for each letter of the alphabet, but I also noticed every chapter is dedicated to someone or to a group of people. So it's a very touching, and so yeah, when it got a lot of publicity when it came out, and I think deservedly. Next. So this is the last one, and it it's like the book that tells you everything about the Montreal Canadiens. So the first edition came out in 2003. So it's got like every season, and then it's got all the stats of all the players. They did a lot of research. They have every sweater number that every player wore on every season. The record is one player in the 1950s, I think, wore 6 different numbers in the same season. So, and this was extremely popular. So another version came out on the centennial of the team, and yet another version came out in 2015. I don't know if there's going to be more because like these books are getting so thick now, so they might have to shorten the statistics or something.
It'll be shorter since they stopped winning.
They didn't. There weren't more pages on the seasons they were in the Stanley Cup than the seasons they didn't. So it's almost finished. Can you go to the next page? We had a couple of surprises. So this book came out in 1981 from Claude Mouton. It's a compilation, Les Canadiens de Montréal, Dynastie de Hockey. It was very popular. It came out in 2 languages simultaneously. So that one. And so the interesting thing is that, the first chapter is about the Montreal Maroons. It was written in English. And the second chapter, which is the bulk of the written part of the book, not counting the statistics, was a reproduction or translation in French of an article that had been published in the New Yorker magazine a few months earlier. So we didn't exclude it because there were still other articles written in French in it, but it was more than half translated, so it didn't get as many votes as it would have gotten otherwise. So the other one, Devant le filet by Jacques Plante, it was well on its way to making the list until I discovered that it was translated from goaltending. Wikipedia says it came out a year later in French. Actually, it only came, the launch in French was only 2 weeks after the launch in English, but it was definitely translated.
It's the wrong uniform.
Which way was it translated though?
From English to French.
You might have written it in French. They translated it in English version.
No,
It was a bigger market.
no, it was written in English and translated to French. He was playing in Toronto at the time.
Presumably he thinks in French.
I was surprised too, but I had a doubt, and I found an article, I'm not sure which newspaper, that clearly said that it had been written in English and that it had then been translated to French. And so in 1997, they re-released it with some updates, although like updates about goalies of the time, not so much updates about goals tending styles. So there was, on the internet, you will find some criticism, like it had nothing to do with how goalie played in 1997. In English, they completely changed the title, as you can see, went from goaltending to on goaltending. So Jacques Plante, always interesting to see him in the Maple Leafs jersey. So, thank you. And I'll